everyone, and welcome back to the Mental Game Gym podcast, the place where we build mindset, muscle, and get your head working for you, not against you. I'm your host, as always, Andrew, mental performance coach for athletes who want to train the mental side of their game, just like they train their body. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to answer some common questions, the most common questions that I get from DMs and group sessions and one-on-one coaching. And these are the things that almost every athlete wrestles with at some point, and I know I have. So these are things like, how do I stop comparing myself to others? Or why do I feel so confident in practice but not in games? And what do I do when I make a mistake and can't stop thinking about it? So we're going to break them down, and I'm going to give you some tools to actually do something about them. And hopefully that helps you feel a little bit less alone in this process. So let's jump in and look at the first question, and that is, how do I stop comparing myself to others? And this is something I remember really struggling with. I would always look at other people and why are they so good and how can they do this? Or I'd be on the starting blocks for swimming and I would be comparing myself to the other athletes. Oh, this person's so fast, this person's so big, they're going to win. I'm not going to win. So obviously that didn't help my performance. I think every athlete has kind of gone through this, and that's normal, right? You see someone else and they're scoring more goals, they're getting more ice time, they're getting praised by the coach, they're doing skills that you struggle with, and then all of a sudden you're in your head, you're overthinking it, and you're wondering if you're good enough. And here's the thing, comparison is a brain default. It's what we do as humans. It can be used as a survival mechanism to comparing ourselves to other people. It's not a personal failure, and your brain is trying to sort out where you stand in society, in this team. But comparison turns toxic when it pulls you away from your own path. So this is why we need to make that shift from comparison to curiosity. So instead of thinking, well, they're better than me, ask questions like, what are they doing that I can learn from? So now we're using comparison as a tool to improve, to get better at what we're doing, to learn new things. So now we're using that comparison as fuel instead of letting it drain you. You can ask yourself questions. What kind of athlete do I want to be, regardless of what anyone else is doing? And that brings that focus internally to focus on you and what you're doing. There's times where looking at other athletes and analyzing what they're doing can be helpful. But when we're in the middle of a competition and we're starting comparing ourselves to other people, it's pulling your focus away from where it needs to be. So we need to focus on ourselves, and we can go back to that episode on controlling the controllables and having that game script. This is what I need to focus on. And then we can also ask, what does my game look like when I'm playing at my best? So again, we're looking at what actions, what things am I doing? How am I carrying myself? That's how I want to perform. That's how I want to act. My focus is on myself. But we can use comparison at times as a way of improving, as a way of learning from other people and their training methods and things that they do. Even outside of sport, whether it's sleep and nutrition, those things are really important. Can we learn a few things from there? But instead of comparing ourselves to other people and putting ourselves down, we're looking at it more of through the lens of curiosity. So the second question that I get asked a lot is, why do I feel confident in practice but not in games? And again, this is something I remember dealing with, and I was so confused that I can play really well with my friends when there's nothing riding on it. I can play really well in practice, but when I get to games and competitions, my performance isn't the same because I started to panic, right? The expectations were too high. So this is a really great question. And again, one of the most common things that I hear. So the difference between practice and games usually has way less to do with the physical skills and way more to do with the expectations and where your focus is going. So in practice, right, we're not overthinking. You're just playing. The environment is looser. There's not as much pressure to perform or prove anything. But then all of a sudden, you get to game day, and then the focus shifts to, I have to score. I can't make a mistake. Coach is watching. Parents are watching. I need to live up to expectations. So now the focus has shifted from playing loose and playing free and just having fun, enjoying the process, to outcomes instead of actions. And that's where the confidence also starts to unravel. So it's not a skill issue, it's a focus issue. We're focusing on the wrong things. We're ramping up that pressure and that stress. And then that leads to us not performing the way that we want to. The really important thing here is to go through your game script and make sure that you have one. So before the game, you can go through it. How do I want to focus today, regardless of how things are going? So creating that game script by having 3 things that you can control. 3 things that are important for you in your sport, in your position. What is it that you need to do and focus on that's going to give you a good chance of success? So here we're looking at things like effort, body language, communication, actions that you're doing, your positioning, right? So common ones would be effort, right? So non-stop movement or getting back to help my defense, getting in the right positions, right? So being open, always moving, being loud, right? Communicating, right? Supporting my teammates. And then in terms of physical skills, we could be hard, accurate shots, hard, accurate passes. Okay, so we're really dialing down and really thinking about things that you can control and those actions that are going to help you perform to the best of your ability on that day. And that becomes your anchor. So when you feel yourself drifting and start focusing on, I have to score, I can't make a mistake, and we're going into that fear or that pressure, or we're going into the what ifs, right? What if this happens? Then come back to that script. And this is your plan for how you want to show up, not just what you want to achieve. So the focus is on that. The focus is on those 3 things. You evaluate your performance on those 3 things. Not if you have scored or assisted or kept a shutout. You evaluate your performance based on the 3 things that you can control. How well did I do with those 3 things? And you can mark them out of 10. And remember this, confidence grows when you focus on what you can control, not on what you can't. That's where the pressure comes from. The pressure builds up because you're focusing on not making mistakes. You're focused on outcomes that you don't have any control over. Or, like we just talked about, we're focused on other people. Again, we don't have any control over what they're saying, what they're doing. So take that game script once you've got it, and you can also, instead of just using it on game day, using it in practice, but at home, spend 5 to 10 minutes visualizing yourself doing those 3 things. Can I see myself and feel myself giving 100% effort, right? Non-stop movement. Can I see and hear myself being loud and vocal and supportive with my teammates? And can I see myself taking hard, accurate shots? So the third question is, what do I do after I make a mistake? Right? Because so often we can make a mistake and it's quickly followed by another one because we're still thinking about that last mistake. And then we spiral out of control and then the game's gone, right? We just want to give up. And mistakes aren't fun, right? They suck, but they're going to happen. So we have to be prepared for what to do when they do happen. The most important thing here, though, is how long we stay stuck on those mistakes. It's okay to be frustrated and annoyed, but how long do you sit with that and focus on that and replay that mistake in your head? Right? We wouldn't drive a car forward while staring in the rearview mirror. But that's what most athletes do. They carry on with their performance, but they're still focused on that mistake and they're still thinking about it. Typically what happens, as I said, you have the mistake, then we have negative self-talk. Why did you do that? You're such an idiot. And then we start overthinking, oh, what is coach going to think of that mistake? Am I going to get taken off? What are my parents going to say? And then because we're not focused on what we need to focus on, we're going to make more mistakes. Or we make a mistake and we try too hard to make up for it, and over trying will make us make more mistakes. So the tool here is to reset. How do I quickly reset? So I need to have a routine so that I can reset from this mistake. So we need something physical and mental that tells your brain, we're done with that, right? Turn the page. Let's move on. So try, first of all, having a deep breath, right? And a slow exhale out, right? This is helping us slow everything down so that we can regain control. Because usually I think you'll find, right, after you make a mistake, a lot of the times you'll do something that's kind of automatic, right? Like slamming the stick, for example. Later on, why did I do that? You're not in control at that point. So by taking that breath, we're giving ourselves time to get back in control of our actions and our thinking. And then to release this mistake, a physical action is really helpful. So wiping your jersey, tapping your stick, rubbing your foot on the ground, right? Pressing your foot into the floor, clapping your hands, snapping your fingers, something like that. And this is something to play around with and figure out for you what works best. So trying that out in practice, seeing what works for you. And then the final part is to reset. So I say a word or a phrase. So next play, move, right here, be present. So that's helping us shift that focus from the past or the future to the present moment. What do I need to do right now that's going to help me perform? And then this is important. You bring your focus to the very next thing you can do well, right? So really we're looking at getting back into action. Because when we're playing, we don't really want to be thinking too much. We need to act. So the best thing that you can do is, what do I need to do right now? What action do I need to do? Do I need to run? Do I need to move? Do I need to, what do I need to do? So making sure that that's where the focus is. So we've shifted to the next play, the present moment. What action do I need to do right now? And this process, it doesn't have to take long. So a breath, a physical action, and a word can take less than 5 seconds. To get a really good deep breath in, you'll probably need more time than that. But if you're still playing and you need to reset after a mistake, then doing it as best as you can. If you're on the bench or you've got more time, there's a break in play, then great. You can take a really good breath. You can probably take 2 breaths. This is a routine that you should be able to do very quickly in the moment, right? You don't have to pause and stand there for 10 seconds. It could be something that we can be doing on the move, because if we're still trying to play, we can't just stop and go through this routine, right? The game keeps going, so we have to keep going as well. So this is a good thing to do. We can do it whenever, wherever we are, right? And it gives us something to go to, something that we can control. And with practice, you'll find that the more you do it, the more effective it becomes. So if you do it a few times and you don't notice much difference, you need to stick with it. And if you do that, you'll start noticing the effects of it. Okay, here's a good question. How do I build real confidence? Confidence isn't a feeling that you wait for. I know I've spoken to a lot of athletes who say, I just wait until I do something good and then I feel confident. So then my question is, well, what if you don't do anything good? What if you don't do anything good for the first 10, 15 minutes? Then you've wasted that 10, 15 minutes. You're not feeling how you want to feel. So we can't leave it to chance, right? So it's something that we have to build by taking action, even when you don't feel ready. Because there's times where we don't feel ready. I don't want to put myself in this position because I don't feel confident. But by acting and by doing it is going to build that confidence, right? So as I said, a lot of people will say, I'll be confident when I start scoring, or I'll feel confident when I'm on the first line. But that's backwards thinking. Confidence is taking action towards what matters, even with doubts, because we're always going to have those doubts and those thoughts that come in that are not very helpful, right? We'll never fully get rid of this doubt, and that's normal. What we have to do is learn to play alongside it, so we don't fight with the thoughts and the feelings, but we accept them, open the door, let them in, and then we commit to action based on your values. We don't have to be happy that they're here. We just have to let them be here, because if we fight with them, again, that's taking the focus away from what's important, and then we start making mistakes. So what does a confident athlete do even when they're nervous, right? We continue to act. We do the right things. We follow our game script. We do the things that are going to bring us closer to where we want to be, regardless of having these thoughts and feelings of, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not confident enough. Because the more you put yourself in those positions and you act and you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone, that's where the confidence comes from. So let those feelings and thoughts be there, and they'll come and they'll go, right? Or just like passing cars or waves, they'll come and they'll go. Your focus has to be on the present moment. What can I do? How can I act right now? And just acknowledge it. Okay, yep. Oh, here comes that thought that I'm not good enough. Here comes those butterflies. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Okay, so we shift that focus away, and we just, instead of fighting with them or agreeing, right? If there's that thought of, I'm not good enough, instead of agreeing with it, we just let it be there. Oh, here's that story, right? Thank you. And we carry on with what we need to be doing. And this will turn down that volume, right? It will turn down the volume of those thoughts. If we just invite them in, oh, thanks, here you are, and then you focus back on what you need to be doing. And this is something I want to actually come back to in a future episode and really look at confidence and really how to build it, because there's so many ways and there's so many things that you can do to build that sustainable and that real confidence. So we'll come back to that in a future episode, and we'll have a whole episode on it. But this is something to start with that will get you started. Okay, so the final question for today is, how do I deal with pressure from my parents or my coaches? Right? And this one's big and it's tricky, because often this pressure comes from a good place, love and support and wanting you to succeed. But it can feel like you're carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations on your back. And this is the shift that we make. Detach your performance from your worth. So you are more than just a gymnast, a hockey player, a soccer player, a baseball player, whatever it is. Your job as an athlete is not to please people, but it's to compete with freedom and purpose and compete at your best. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. That's a quote from Theodore Roosevelt that really sticks with me, and I think it's really important to remember, is that we have to do what we can with what we have, where we are. And if we do that, then we should be happy, and the people that are supporting us should recognize this. But sometimes we need to set some boundaries. So sometimes have those hard conversations with parents, with coaches. And sometimes you need to come back to your why, your values. So think about, who am I playing for? And what do I want to bring to this game? So really, again, we're coming back to you. What's important for you? So own your reasons, and that's where the real power is. But have those conversations. I find having clear expectations and expectations that are not based on outcomes and results that you can't control. So having that conversation with parents especially, telling them, this is where my focus is. This is what I want to focus on. Tell them the game script. Go through with them those 3 things. These are the things that I'm focusing on in games. So afterwards, when we have a conversation about the performance, this is what we can talk about. Not the goals and the wins and the stats, but the actions and the things that you can control that will give you a good chance of success. So don't be afraid to have those conversations. If you feel that they're focusing on the wrong things, right? And after listening to these episodes, then tell them what you want, what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, so that you can be aligned in that and they know what you want and they can support you in the goals that you're trying to achieve and where your focus is, right? For you, is it important that you're focused on those actions that you can control versus the things that you can't, like outcomes? Okay, so let's wrap up on today's Q&A. If any of these answers hit home for you, here's your challenge. Pick one thing from today and actually try it in practice. Don't just listen, but I want you to experiment. I want you to grow your mental game by putting these things into place, into action. So experiment with them, play around with them. If you want to go deeper, then you have a couple of options. You can DM me on Instagram at The Mental Game Gym and tell me what you're working through. Or if you really want to work on these things, then get in touch with me and we can make it happen. If you have any questions for a future episode that you're dealing with, issues, struggles, challenges, then just put a comment down below or send me a message and I'll make sure to include it in my next Q&A episode. Thanks for being here. Thanks for caring about your mindset. And I'll catch you on the next episode.